U.S. President Donald Trump on the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said, quote, "He's been a lousy Fed chairman. He's been too high on interest rates, and I call him too late. He heads up a construction situation. He's into billions and billions of dollars, and it looks like they won't open for a long time. He's either corrupt or incompetent." Now, in regards to the billions of dollars that was just mentioned there, he's specifically referring to the latest additions to the Federal Reserve building in Washington. But ultimately, this entire pressure campaign by the DOJ, even though Trump claims that he's not a part of it, is to try and pressure Jerome into lowering interest rates. So let's talk about that for a second. He said that he's been too high on interest rates. Well, just pull this up here, pull up some more of my notes. While this is last year, so 2025, the last quarter of last year of 2025, the United States had rising inflation. So from July all the way to September, we had went from 2.73% inflation, or 2.7 to 3% CPI, which is the same exact thing. And I'm getting this from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. In that time, we had not cut rates, and this is when Trump was freaking out, wanting Powell to cut rates. We are supposed to, or rather the Fed, its stated goal is to keep inflation roughly around 2%. So anytime it is above 2%, we, the Federal Reserve rather, is supposed to raise rates in order to combat this. But in the exact same time that Trump was freaking out, from the time that he got in office until September, inflation had rose roughly 6% in that time. Finally, the Fed sees signs that the inflation rate might start to stall or go down, and they go ahead and decide to start cutting rates. So we had 3 rate cuts last year. One in September, which was 25 basis points, one in October, which was 25, and another in December, which again was 25. So a total of 75 basis points, or 0.75%. This got us down to the effective federal funds rate of 3.64 to 3.72, and the current target rate was 3.5 to 3.75. So in other words, we're exactly in the range that the Fed wants to be as far as that goes. Following this, the inflation rate started to drop. So we went from 3% in September. We did not have any recorded data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics for October, but we went from 3% in September down to 2.7, where it currently sits at, which is the last recorded rate in December. So theoretically, you could make the argument that Trump is right to start pressuring Powell to once again lower or cut rates. However, we are still above the Fed's stated 2% goal, which they have shifted away from in the past year or two. But it has been a long-standing Federal Reserve policy to try and keep inflation at roughly 2%, which we are still above. So if the Fed decides to just not do any rate cuts at all, or raise rates again, they would technically be in the right to do so, even though it looks like inflation could continue to fall.